What's the weirdest rule you had in your home growing up? My grandmother said not to shit during a lightning storm because a bolt of lightning might strike the pipe and electrocute me. That's extreme. My parents just told us no showers or going outside. My kids just came home from their grandmother's house yesterday evening without having taken a shower, because it was storming intermittently. I never knew this was a thing. It's becoming less of an issue. Drain pipes are rarely metal nowadays, and most new construction uses PEX, not copper. I wasn't allowed to put sugar in my tea because my mom told me that when you go to prison they don't let you have sugar, so it will make prison that much harder. 1. Thanks for having so much faith in me, Mom. 2. I'm pretty sure you are allowed sugar for your tea in prison. I'm surprised she didn't lock you in. Because in jail you get locked in. Well, about that one. Hey, you're not the op. This guy's a phony. A big fat phony. Wasn't allowed to watch anything with a black person in a prominent role. My dad was super racist, so I missed out on everything from That's So Raven to Fresh Prince. Even Dora got a hard pass. My dad was the same, till his own dad informed him that he was not, in fact, anywhere close to being white. I'm curious how your dad lived that long without knowing he wasn't white. Even if he looked white, how could he know nothing of his background? He was blind, so they just told him he was white, a la Clay and Bigsby. I wasn't allowed to drink the milk left over after eating cereal. Never really got an explanation, but my dad would yell if I tried. I would get in trouble for not drinking the milk. That's so bizarre. I know why. You slurped. You slurped really, really bad. Honestly, this is probably oot. Geez and gosh were banned because they sounded kinda like Jesus and God, so it was considered subtly taking the Lord's name in vain. Wasn't allowed to say shut up because it was a bad word as well, and then one day my mom told me to shut up, loudly crying face. We weren't allowed to celebrate Halloween because it was the devil's holiday. We weren't even allowed to go to school that day in order to avoid the festivities. They told us the Halloween candy was cursed, so we wouldn't eat it. In the night we turned off the lights and hid in terror. It was unsafe to go outside in case a Satanist kidnapped us to sacrifice to the devil. Also, Pokemon was considered demonic. Felt bad for watching it but couldn't resist. Grimacing face. I hate how familiar this is. Apostolic Pentecostals for me, scary bunch. Yeah, evangelical Lutheran over here. My fun fact at parties is that I never went trick-or-treating. Turns out a lot of people find that really disturbing. My parents acted like referring to them as he or she while they were in the room was the equivalent of saying fuck you. So referring to my parents with pronouns was effectively not allowed. That seems like it could create some very cumbersome sentences. Your mom was planning on going out with mom's friends tomorrow evening, so we have to make dinner while mom is gone. It's time mom got some free time to momself. Same, I never understood why that always caused such a strong reaction. I was always told, she's the cat's mother. I still don't get it. For a while my mom had us go to public school in the city she worked in and used my stepdad's business address. She was so scared about being caught that we weren't allowed to have friends. This lasted for 6 years. Caught of doing what please. Probably that they didn't actually live in the school district. What a weird law. In Poland you can send your kids to school basically everywhere you want. Most people choose what is the closest, but it's definitely not mandatory. Cursing Thursdays. You could say whatever you wanted with no consequences. Had someone stay over who knew the rule, opened my parents' bedroom and said, "Good night, motherfuckers." If you didn't swear at your parents on the other days of the week, this proves the purge works. Realization dawns on me that the purge movies make sense now. People who narrate their thoughts die first. We weren't allowed to say, "I am the best," or "I am the greatest." My dad grew up in a competitive household. I went to private Christian school and some kids told me they got in trouble at home if they said something was awesome. Only God is awesome, they'd be told. What about his works? Well, are you saying God's works aren't awesome? No violent video games unless they were about history. So Call of Duty, World at War was okay. Age of Empires, Assassin's Creed. When I had someone over I couldn't keep the door closed, but the weird part was when a girl was over, I could keep it closed, a boy had to be open. Did your parents perhaps suspect you were gay and didn't want that? A better reasoning. He could just play with dolls and makeup though. I wasn't allowed to wear my hat backwards. My dad thought that it was a gang thing. Mind you, this was in rural Wisconsin in the 90s. My parents are wonderful people, just may not have had the best understanding of the world at that time. My grandpa would always wear hats, and while he is sleeping I put it on him backwards and he doesn't notice until someone tells him. Oddly wholesome. Oddly wholesome. No pooping or peeing within the hours of 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. AM or PM. AM, not sure if they had a reason, but it was always so random. Weird. How was that enforced? We could watch Freddy movies but not Jason movies. BC My mom thought Friday the 13th was satanic, but Nightmare on Elm Street movies were just for fun. I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons growing up because Bart was disrespectful to his parents. However, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street were totally fine. We were allowed to watch The Simpsons but not if Krusty was on the episode. Was it 'cause he's Jewish? In all seriousness though, this is the most bizarre one yet. I was never allowed to leave a drink in the car because, according to my mother, someone could poison it. She's always been overly paranoid about safety, but that one is my favorite. My dad has a thing about drink safety too. His thing was that if you opened a soda can, and then lost eye contact with it, even briefly, you shouldn't drink from it again because a bee could have gotten in it. I mean, technically a possibility but probably not a common enough issue to have been discussed as much as it was. Edit. Okay guys, dad was right, as usual, but I'm never telling him these stories. He doesn't need that much confirmation of his genius. Maybe the oil field story, both because my dad used to work in the oil field himself and because that story is pretty metal. This happened on my first oil field job. I pulled up to the rig and a helicopter was leaving. A bee got into a can of Mount Dew and stung a guy in the throat. The tool pusher was a retired army medic and did a field tracheotomy to save the guy. When I turned 16, I was not allowed to leave my room for any reason whatsoever between the hours of 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. I had my own bathroom and was given a mini fridge for snacks if I got hungry or was up late in the summer. I found out later that this was because my mom would get on dating sites and invite random men to the house for coitus and didn't want me stealing the spotlight and taking away her shot at love. Of all the ways you could have said it, you chose coitus. 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 The moistest coitus. You don't use save on the computer, you always used save as, because if you don't you could delete everyone's information on the computer. At least your parents knew the difference between save and save is. But save doesn't wipe the computer. They at least know it wipes previous data. Obviously thinking it wipes the entire computer is nonsense. Wasn't allowed to say, sucks, or freaking. Me too. I also couldn't say but, fart, poop, or pee. Well that freaking sucks. Wait, that's illegal. Man oh man, just reading through some of these responses makes me even more appreciative that my parents weren't fucking crazy. Same. I mean, grew up in a highly religious Mormon household, and even then, my parents weren't half as crazy as some of the folks in here. Sometimes my dad preaches to Mormons about God partly because he hates being preached to, partly because he loves preaching to people.